The new Alpha commander didn't bother to say hello. His first words to me were, "Detective Laurent, if you refuse to be handled, why are you still on my payroll?" I had exactly 3 thoughts in that moment. 1. His voice sounded like it had been sharpened against stone and army discipline. 2. The smell of him hit me like a punch. Rain on hot asphalt, pine and that expensive ink we use only when someone important has to sign something. 3. If he ever talked to another Omega like that in front of me, I was going to bite him. Probably metaphorically. Hopefully. I leaned back in the chair he'd very clearly not invited me to sit in, and laced my fingers over my stomach like I was perfectly relaxed and not counting the exits behind him. "That's a very strong opener, Commander," I said. "Do you start all your HR conversations with threats, or am I getting the special edition?" His eyes cut to me like twin scalpels. We were alone in his glass-walled office on the mezzanine, with the entire Special Shifter Crimes unit spread beneath us in an open-plan sprawl of desks, screens and restless movement. Down there, people were pretending not to stare up here. Up here, everything was steel, glass, and obsession with 90-degree angles. His desk, centered. His files, aligned. His pens, in a straight metal tray. Even the air felt squared off, scrubbed to antiseptic cleanliness with only a trace of mint over metal. He stood behind that desk in a dark shirt, sleeves rolled up to his forearms. Shoulders straight like a textbook illustration for military posture. Short hair, dark, clipped close enough that it obeyed gravity purely from fear. His scent was alpha through and through, but there was something strangled in it, narrowed down to function. Like he'd filed away everything that wasn't useful on the battlefield. "Answer the question, detective," he said. I let my gaze wander past him to the wall. Tactical maps, marked with pins and string. Overlays of districts, safe zones, red clusters of incidents. Old photos in black frames, squads in fatigues, a forest at night, a helicopter's open door with legs dangling over the edge. "Which one?" I asked. "You implied several. Am I refusing to be handled? Is your payroll inefficient, or are you bad with small talk?" For a second, something flickered over his face, something that was not approval. But then his expression locked back into that controlled blankness. "Handled," he said, enunciating each syllable like it tasted wrong in his mouth. "Omegas in the field require handling. You decline handlers, you decline pairing, you decline reassignment to desk work. The result is an Omega detective. With no alpha cover, and no stable scent profile sitting behind a screen while Omegas are being targeted. Tell me again why I shouldn't cut my losses." There it was. The word, Omega. The way he said it, clinical, factual, not mocking, but not gentle either, hit like a memory. I smiled. It felt like baring my teeth. "Because I close cases," I said. "Even without an alpha leash." He took a step closer around the desk. He wasn't that much taller than me, but he felt taller, like gravity leaned his way out of habit. I watched his nostrils flare, the subtle tilt of his head. The way his pupils shifted, focusing on the space just above my collarbone, where my scent should have wrapped the air. It didn't. Nothing moved in his expression, but the silence changed. It wasn't just quiet anymore, it was disrupted. He inhaled again, deeper. Nothing. The corner of his mouth tightened by exactly 1 millimeter. That stung more than it should have. Alpha wolves grew up reading the air like a book. Rage, fear, want, status, all layered in scent. To them, Omegas weren't just people, we were weather, tides, gravity. I'd been told once that my scent used to hit like warm thunder before rain. Now, when he tried to read me, there was only static. A blurry mirror. "You see the problem," he said at last. "I see several," I said lightly, even as my throat tried to close. 1. You're invading my personal space. 2. If you keep sniffing me like that in front of the glass, HR's going to file something awkward. 3. If my non-existent scent is bothering you, we can both write a strongly worded letter to my deceased alpha and ask him to stop being dead. His jaw flexed. For the first time, I saw a crack in the calm, not anger, frustration, maybe confusion. The scent of rain around him shifted, just a fraction sharper. "I read your file," he said. "Then you know this isn't my favorite topic." "I don't care what your favorite topic is, detective. I care that an Omega with a broken scent is refusing protocol while we have a serial targeting Omegas across 3 districts. I flinched before I could stop it. His gaze dropped, catching the flicker in my shoulders. Damn it. He didn't pounce though. He just watched. Calculating. "Sit up straight," he said. This isn't a therapy session, it's a briefing. Wow, I murmured. You're really killing the recruitment brochure vibe. He turned away from me, picked up a remote, and turned on the screen behind him. Crime scene photos appeared, one by one. Omega Victim 1, he said. Victim 2. Victim 3. Faces blurred, as per regulation. Bodies in positions that made my own muscles tense in sympathy. Not torn apart, not bleeding out. Just wrong. Limbs arranged, heads bowed toward mirrors. I didn't have to be in the room to smell what they'd smelled. Terror, humiliation, the stubborn bitter tang of survival. None of them died, I heard myself say. Not yet, he answered. They are catatonic, unresponsive. Their scent profiles are... He tapped the screen where a chart appeared. Flattened. Like someone took an eraser to them. Like mine, I said. The words were out before I could drag them back. They tasted like metal. His eyes flicked to me again. Yes. Like yours. We looked at each other across that glass-clean office. 3 stories of city noise pulsed outside the windows, sirens, traffic, a street vendor shouting about dumplings. Inside, the only sound was the soft hum of the air system trying to make us all smell like nothing. In each scene, Dale said, mirrors or reflective surfaces were positioned deliberately. Victims were restrained facing them. They watched themselves as it happened. As what happened? My voice came out quieter than I wanted. We don't know, he said. We know the chemical traces, the pheromonal saturation. We know their heartbeat patterns spiked, then plunged. We know their scent signatures imploded. His hand formed a fist at his side. We don't know exactly what the shifter did to them while they stared into their own eyes. My skin crawled. My inner wolf, small and battered and not particularly eager to exist these days, pressed against my ribs, restless. I'm shocked you're telling me this, I said. Isn't this the part where you tuck the fragile Omega away in an office and send a pack of robust alphas instead? That was my first thought, he said calmly. Then I saw the profiles. Our unknown shifter is an Omega specialist. He knows how to manipulate their scent, their instincts, their attachments. My alphas track blood trails and broken bones just fine. This is different. His gaze was steady. You are an Omega. A detective. You understand how scent and emotion intersect. You understand how to think like prey that refuses to be prey. And, his nostrils flared again as if to prove it. You are anomalous. He can't scrub what isn't there. There was a compliment in there somewhere. Unfortunately, it was wrapped in so much tactical logic it barely looked human. I swallowed. So what, I'm bait, I said. Because I'm conveniently broken? You're a resource, he answered, without flinching. Who's been wasting his time behind a monitor for 6 months. 6 months since the last time my alpha's scent had wrapped around mine like a shield. 6 months since that smell had been replaced by the sterile sting of hospital corridors, and the weight of a folded flag. 6 months since I'd woken up one morning, and realized everyone around me was squinting, trying to read something that wasn't there anymore. I tried on a smile again. It creaked, but it held. You're very charming, Commander. Dale Kincaid, he said. But you'll address me as Commander, while we're in the building. I'll address you as someone who should try decaf, I said mildly. But fine. Commander. Let me save you some time. You see, anomalous Omega asset. And you think you can move me around a board like a pawn. Headquarters tried that. Didn't go well. That's because headquarters likes to pamper and patronize, he said. I don't. I command. You follow orders. We close this case. You refuse, I sign 3 papers, and you're reassigned to civilian research, until mandatory retirement. He said it so simply. My chest tightened anyway. Those are my options? I asked. Play the weird scentless Omega in your field experiment, or spend the rest of my career writing reports for people who won't read them? Yes. I studied him. The measured rise and fall of his shoulders, the faint tension in his jaw that never quite disappeared, the scent that never bloomed fully, held in check like everything else about him. You do realize, I said, that declaring you will obey to an Omega, with handler trauma, is just begging for non-compliance, right? I don't care about your trauma, he said. It wasn't cruel, just brutally honest. I care about the people who are going to be next if we don't move. Get used to the idea, detective. You're going back in the field. Today, there it was. The ultimatum. The word field triggered a small, precise explosion of sensations in my body. The sound of gravel under boots, The smell of cordite and fur, the feel of hands catching me by the back of my neck and yanking me behind cover, the knock of my heartbeat against cracked ribs. I pushed the memories down, like shoving junk into an already overstuffed closet. Fine, I said. But, we do it my way. His brows lifted. No. We do it my way. You give input. You do not dictate operation structure. My way, I clarified, as in, I will not wear collar. I will not be leashed, muzzled, tagged as property of Kincaid, or whatever other army kink you brought with you. And if anyone calls me pet in your hearing and you don't shut it down, we're going to have a problem. For a second. The corner of his mouth twitched, not quite a smile. More like an aborted reaction he strangled before it could live. No collar, he said. No leash, you're a detective. You get treated as one, but you will follow my orders in the field, or I will drag you back here myself. Understood? I hated that a part of me relaxed at that. I hated that another part burned. Crystal, I said. He nodded toward the door. Briefing packet is on your terminal. Gear up. We leave in 20. That's it? I shrugged as I stood, smoothing my shirt, trying not to look as shaky as I felt. No inspirational speech? No, if you die it'll look bad on my performance review. If you die, it will look bad on my unit, he said. And I don't tolerate failures in my unit. Now get out of my office, detective. See? I said, as I turned toward the glass door. That sounded almost caring. The door, Laurent, he said. I stepped out into the main floor. The noise hit me first. Phones, keyboards, voices. The low constant hum of too much caffeine and not enough sleep. The Special Shifter Crimes Unit was laid out like a war room someone had tried to disguise as an office with potted plants. It wasn't working. Half the eyes in the room flicked to me as the door hissed shut behind me. Omegas, betas, alphas, some in uniform, some in civilian jackets with badges clipped to their belts. Scent layered over scent, coffee, fur, printer ink, stale donuts, nervous sweat, frustration. I could feel them all trying in that subtle shifter way to catch a whiff of me. Nothing to see here, folks. Blank page. Move along. Hey, Laurent. A familiar voice called. I turned. Malik, one of our betas, lounged against the nearest pillar with a tablet in his hand. Tall, broad, dark curls tied back. His scent was easygoing citrus over steel, always a relief after too many bristling alphas. How bad was it? He asked in a low voice as I approached. On a scale from basic grilling to full disembowelment with PowerPoint. I dropped my head back dramatically. He tried to fire me with his eyes. Malik winced. Ouch. He also speaks exclusively in ultimatums, I added. I think feelings were banned in his original pack. Malik's gaze flicked up to the glass office where Dale still stood, talking to someone on his comm. He looks like a closet full of knives, he said. Yeah, I sighed. And I'm apparently the idiot who just volunteered to reach in without gloves. You're going back out? Malik's brows shot up. You? Field? Don't sound so surprised, I said. I used to be terrifying, you know. You still are, he said. Just more paperwork, terrifying. I shoved his shoulder. He laughed. Across the room, I heard someone mutter, told you he'd pull Laurent in. Pay up. A low chorus of grumbling followed. I arched a brow at Malik. Are there bets on how long I last? Absolutely, he said, unashamed. The commander walks in here all straight-backed and murder-scented first. Thing he does is summon the most problematic Omega in the building. We're not idiots, Laws. We're entertainment-starved. Wow. Love the support. Malik grinned. My money's on you, if it helps. It does not, I said. What's the line? He checked his tablet. 3 days before one of you snaps. Optimistic, I said. Honestly. I thought it'd be 3 hours. Malik's expression softened just a fraction. You okay with this? Going out again? The question slipped under my armor more easily than Dale's bluntness had. My chest tightened. For a second, my mind gave me an unhelpful flash of memory. My last alpha. S hand on my shoulder. The smell of him saying without words, I've got you. I forced air into my lungs. It tasted like office dust and overbrewed coffee, not like the past. No, I said honestly. But apparently, that doesn't matter. Malik bumped his shoulder against mine. Then you do what you always do. You make it matter on your terms. I hate it when you're wise, I muttered. He snorted. Lie. You love it. Shut up, I said. But there was no heat in it. I left him there, and made my way to my desk. Half my life was on that tabletop. Sticky notes, old case files, a mug that said I bite but only the guilty. My monitor blinked with a new message, briefing packet, priority. I clicked it open. Photos, maps, timestamps, victims, mirrors. I scrolled through, heart thudding slower and heavier with each image. The last one stopped me cold. In the corner of the latest scene, in the reflection of a shattered bathroom cabinet, there was a faint smear on the wall. A triangle drawn with a fingertip, too straight to be random. My hand twitched toward the screen. Memory rose up like a tide. Stop it. I shut the file as hard as if I'd slammed a physical folder. Across the floor I heard a chair scrape. I looked up. Dale was coming down the metal stairs from his office, jacket on now, expression unchanged. Still that carved, focused calm. For a second, our eyes met through the sea of desks. I couldn't smell him from here. Couldn't feel that stormy pine and rain presence the way I would have once. But my body remembered the echo of it from his office, and something low in my gut clenched in complicated resentment. He jerked his chin toward the exit. Laurent with me. Every head in the room pretended not to watch us. I grabbed my coat and badge, ignoring the cold sweat slicking my palms. The world felt slightly skewed, like the floor had dropped half an inch since this morning. As I walked past Malik, he whispered, "Text me if he actually disembowels you. I want to know if I won the bet." "You've got issues," I whispered back. "And you love me?" "Tragically," I said. The automatic doors hissed open, and the city hit me full force. Exhaust, hot pavement, the faint, leathery tang of a passing biker's jacket, the spice of street food from the corner cart. Above, skyscraper windows glittered, catching pieces of sky and warping them. Commander Dale Kincaid's car waited at the curb. Of course it was black. Of course it was spotless. He opened the driver's door without looking at me. "Laurent." I hesitated on the sidewalk for half a heartbeat, the weight of 6 months of stillness pressing down on my shoulders. I wasn't ready for the field. I wasn't ready for Dale. But the city didn't care about what I feared. The crime scene was on the 4th floor of an old brick building that had pretensions of being a luxury loft and failed at every step. Industrial zone, edge of the riverfront. The kind of place where factories had once coughed smoke and now influencers tried to film edgy content with raw city vibes and almost stepped on used needles. The metal stairs groaned under our weight as we climbed, Dale ahead of me, his hand wrapped around the rail like he didn't trust it. The hallway outside the unit smelled like stale water, takeout, and the faint musk of too many bodies and not enough ventilation. Then the uniform at the door opened it, and the world changed. The first thing that hit me was the light. It wasn't bright, just wrong. The late afternoon sun sneaked in through big industrial windows and then ricocheted off every reflective surface in the place, fragmenting into shards. It felt like walking into a box full of broken suns. There were mirrors everywhere. Full-length mirrors propped against the exposed brick walls. Small vanity mirrors on the floor. Round mirrors hanging too low from the ceiling on thin wires that swayed when the door closed behind us. Shards of cracked glass scattered like ice across the concrete. Each piece caught a sliver of me. An eye here, a mouth there, a shoulder, a hand, all out of sync. It made my skin crawl. The smell followed a second later. Metallic fear, sharp and thin. The sour edge of panic sweat dried on skin. Chemical cleaners trying and failing to erase what had happened. Underneath all of it, damp concrete, dust, the ghost of somebody's cologne. And threaded through like a wire, an unfamiliar alpha signature, strong but precise. As if whoever it belonged to knew exactly how far to extend and where to stop. My chest tightened, not from the stench itself, but from the way it latched onto something old in me. Something that remembered breathless training nights with my old pack glass in darkness, and reflections used as drills, see without being seen, move without leaving trace. I stepped in anyway. "Scene is secure, Commander," the uniform said behind us. "Victims been transported. No visible injuries, but the EMT said." "I read the preliminary report," Dale cut in, voice flat. "Laurent, with me. Everyone else, do not touch anything that reflects unless you want forensics to skin you." "Yes, sir." The door shut. The noise from the hall died. We were alone in the flickering light. I shoved my hands into my coat pockets so I wouldn't accidentally brush a mirror and mess up prints. Each step felt too loud. My own reflection followed me in 100 broken pieces. The loft itself was expensive. Under all the crime scene tape. Minimal furniture. couch, coffee table, a kitchen suite that probably cost more than my yearly salary. No clutter, no family photos. Just cold, curated surfaces. And the mirrors, always the mirrors. Victim? I asked, keeping my voice steady. Name, Caden Yo, Dale said. Omega. 26. Lives alone. Freelance graphic designer, according to his file. He didn't show up for a delivery job this morning. Courier smelled distress hormones in the hallway. Called it in. Patrol found him here. Status? Alive. Dale said. Unresponsive, catatonic. HR says his scent profile was normal 2 days ago at the precinct. He came in to renew his ID seals. Now. He exhaled slowly, not quite a sigh. Flattened. I nodded once. We both knew what that meant. The scent markers that told the world who you were, rank, temperament, pack ties, had been smudged out. Not erased entirely, but blurred to the point of static. Like static where a song used to be. Any signs of physical restraint? I asked. He shook his head. No bruising, no ligature marks. No trauma besides a minor abrasion on his wrist, likely self-inflicted. But he was found here. He pointed toward the center of the room. Yellow markers and a white chalk outline traced where Caden had been. He'd been kneeling, facing a large freestanding mirror. Of course he had. I stepped closer, ignoring the prickling along my spine. The mirror was almost as tall as I was, framed in brushed steel. The surface was clean, except for fingerprints dusted in fine black powder and the circular residue of someone's breath near the middle, like they'd leaned close. The space in front of it still held the faint imprint of a body, and the echo of scent, terror, despair, resignation. Dale stayed back a pace, scanning every angle with the kind of methodical attention that made my teeth itch. His eyes moved like he was mapping the room inside his skull. Victim was kneeling here, he said. EMTs say the position of his knees and spine suggests he'd been that way for some time. Camera in the hallway is conveniently offline for the last 12 hours. Of course it is, I muttered. We're pulling building server backups, he went on. But whoever did this knew where the blind spots were and how to exploit them. Or knew someone who did, I said. Possibly, he conceded. I tuned him out for a moment, and focused on what mattered to me. Air currents, angles, how the reflections overlapped. The mirrors weren't random. They looked chaotic at first glance, but once I let my eyes blur, a pattern emerged. The round ceiling mirrors were positioned so they reflected anyone standing in the center from above. The ones on the floor caught ankles and wrists. The larger ones on the walls cut bodies into segments. If you knelt where Caden had knelt, you would see yourself split and reassembled from a dozen directions. You wouldn't be able to move without watching yourself move. Every flinch, every tear, every tremor, trapped. My stomach turned. You okay, detective? Dale's voice came from behind me. Define. Okay, I said, distracted. He didn't answer. When I glanced at him, I caught that little narrowing of his eyes again. The one that meant he was trying to read me and getting nothing. He looked, for a heartbeat, like a man holding an instrument to his ear that should be singing, and instead kept giving him silence. I looked away first. There's no blood, I said. No sign of a fight. He didn't try to run. Not physically, Dale said. He crouched near the chalk outline, careful not to step on it. There are nail marks on the floorboards here. 3 of them, shallow. I walked around to see. He was right. 3 faint gouges in the sealant, like someone had dug their nails in hard and then let go. He braced himself, I said softly. But not to pull away. To stay. Because something had told him to. Because Omegas were trained from birth to listen, when a stronger scent pressed down and said stay. Be good. Don't move. Panic tried to wrap cold fingers around my ribs. I forced a breath in, then out. There's no way this was just some random shifter experimenting, I said. They knew what they were doing. I'm aware, Dale said. We worked the room. He catalogued. I felt. The air currents told me where someone had walked, the pattern of their movements. The stronger alpha scent concentrated in a ring around Caden's kneeling spot, but there was a faint trace in other places too, near the door, along the kitchen island, by the windows. I followed it to a far corner, where a cheap IKEA side table stood against the wall. On it, a bowl of keys, a charging phone, bagged by forensics, 2 empty glasses, and a small round mirror on a thin metal stand. The mirror's face was tilted, not straight up, not straight out, but at an angle. The angle was what snagged me. I'd seen that angle before. My chest tightened for a different reason this time. In the reflection, my face stared back at me, slightly distorted. For a split second, it wasn't mine. It was younger, brighter, laughing as a hand, that wasn't mine either, reached out to flick the edge of a practice mirror, and sent it spinning. See? A voice from years ago. Angles, little L. You control the angles, you control what they see, you can make yourself a monster or a saint with half a twist. I blinked. The phantom memory dissolved. I was alone with my own tired eyes again. Get a grip. I adjusted my stance, making it look casual, like I was just another detective staring at glass and hoping it would talk back. Behind me, I heard Dale's steps approach. Don't touch that, he said. I'm not touching it, I replied under my breath. I'm looking. Don't lean into it, he clarified. We don't know if the mirror is a mind control device? I cut in. Relax, Commander. If it was, you'd already be kneeling in front of it apologizing for your people skills. He ignored the jab. Typical. There's residue on the stand, he said, nodding toward a faint smudge where fingers had grasped the base. Forensics will run it. Great, I said. In 3 days they'll tell us there were traces of skin cells and the shocking presence of oxygen in the air. Meanwhile, the why is in how this is set up. He stepped up beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat of him, like a radiator on a cold night. My body reacted stupidly, a low hum of awareness along my skin. He was watching the mirror, but his attention flicked to my reflection instead of his own. Explain, he said. I swallowed. Throat suddenly dry. The mirrors, the angles. If you put someone here. I pointed to the chalk outline in the center of the room, visible in miniature in the small mirror, and arrange all the reflective surfaces just so, you don't have to lay a finger on them. Their own image does the work. You trap them with themselves. Every instinct saying run collides with what their eyes are telling them they look like when they disobey. Layer enough scent command over that and they stay, he finished. Yeah. He studied me in the mirror. Not directly. Through it. His eyes met mine on glass, not in air. It was a strange intimacy, second-hand, and doubled. Don't go in there without my permission, he said quietly. In where? I asked. Into the space he built, he said. Whatever pattern you're seeing. His gaze narrowed, watching the micro-twitches in my face. You're already halfway inside it. He wasn't wrong. It's not your head, I said, forcing a smirk. You can't put police tape across my frontal lobe. That's not funny, he said. It is to me. His scent pressed against the edges of my perception. Rainstorm, pine, ink, stress. My own scent did nothing back. I was scentless static in front of a very loud radio. It was funny, in a bleak sort of way, that an alpha like him, trained to read every flicker of fear or desire in the room, had been handed an omega he literally couldn't smell. I stepped back from the mirror, putting real distance between us and the pattern. If you want me to be useful, I said, you let me do what I do. That means following scent lines where they go, even if they go into creepy mirror mazes. And if what you do gets you caught in whatever he used on Yo? Dale countered. I'm not carrying 2 bodies out of this case. I snorted. You're assuming you could lift me. I'm very emotionally heavy. He didn't smile, but the line of his mouth eased a fraction. You are not going anywhere without my authorization. That is not negotiable. You don't smell like my alpha, I said lightly. So your odds of issuing commands that stick are iffy. He turned then, fully facing me, stepping closer. Close enough that the warmth of him washed over me, close enough that I could see the faint scar along his jaw under the day's stubble, the flecks of darker gray in his irises. My wolf, the part of me that stubbornly refused to die, even after everything. Stilled for a heartbeat. Not in fear. Just attention. Dale leaned in, just enough that a normal omega would have felt his scent roll. Over them would have smelled rank and intent and the quiet weight of authority. I smelled nothing. Well, that wasn't true. I smelled him as a person. Soap, fabric fibers, city air clinging to his clothes. But not like an alpha command. Not like a storm front bearing down. It was like watching lightning through soundproof glass. His eyes searched my face, hunting for the telltale signs, pupils widening. Breath stuttering, shoulders dropping in automatic submission. I gave him none of them. Not because I was that strong. Because my scent channels were broken, and whatever he was broadcasting, I couldn't pick it up. His expression didn't change much, but something in the tightness around his eyes eased. Like he'd confirmed a hypothesis he hadn't wanted to believe. "You're right," he said finally. "I don't smell like your alpha." The way he said your alpha made something twist in my chest. "He's dead," I said, a little too sharply. "He doesn't smell like anything." Silence stretched between us, heavy and sharp-edged. Then Dale stepped back exactly one pace, as if he'd measured it. "I'm not trying to replace him," he said. "I'm trying to keep you alive." "Trust me," I said. "Those goals never aligned in my experience." His jaw tensed. For a moment, I thought he'd push it, press for more details, force the issue. Instead, he let it go like he was shelving it for later. He turned away, scanning the room again, eyes cataloging. That's when I saw it. At first, it was just another reflection in a sea of them. A faint, white line on the surface of one of the wall mirrors, near the edge, at about chest height. I almost missed it because of the glare from the window opposite. But once I saw the shape, my heart stuttered. A triangle. Not drawn boldly, not with a marker or a knife. Scratched lightly into the condensation residue, probably with a fingernail. 3 straight lines, uneven but deliberate. The bottom slightly longer than the sides. My breath caught. "Don't touch that," I heard myself say, a little too fast. Dale turned. "What?" I forced myself to move casually, strolling toward the mirror like it was any other piece of evidence. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else. I stopped just short of the glass, hands jammed deep into my coat pockets so I wouldn't lift them. Up close, the symbol was even more unmistakable. A triangle. 1 point up. I knew that shape. I knew the exact way the lines were offset, because I'd watched it drawn into fogged windows, dirt, steam-covered shower doors 100 times before. Pack sign. Private shorthand. His sign. My brother who wasn't. The senior wolf who taught me how to move, how to listen, how to laugh when training hurt, and how to make mirrors into weapons and shields. He'd said, "Angles, little L. You control angles, you control attention. Our triangle. Your center." I realized I was holding my breath. I let it out slowly through my nose, aware of Dale's gaze between my shoulder blades. "Laurent," he said. "What is it?" "Nothing," I lied. My voice came out almost normal. Almost. I shifted slightly, blocking his direct view of the symbol with my body. "Just more of the same," I added. "Mirror graffiti, shocking." Behind me, Dale went very still. "When you walked toward that mirror," he said, "your heart rate spiked." I rolled my eyes, keeping my face turned away so he couldn't see the flicker of panic I hadn't smoothed out yet. "You listening to my pulse now? That's creepy, even for an alpha." "It's a useful indicator," he said. "And yours just changed. You recognize something." I forced my shoulders to loosen, my posture to go casual. "If I flinch at every reminder that omegas are being tortured in front of reflective surfaces," I said, "we're going to be here all day. Did you want my professional opinion, or my trauma report?" "Professional opinion," he said. "But if your trauma intersects with our unknown subject, I want to know that too." "I'm sure you do." I offered him a brittle smile over my shoulder. "And I'm sure you also know that trying to order personal disclosures out of me is going to go about as well as you trying to alpha command my scentless nervous system. Which is to say, not." "Laurent." His tone flattened. "Warning. Do you know something that is relevant to this case?" "I know that whoever did this has a flair for the dramatic," I said. "And a working understanding of how omegas respond to visual feedback and scent pressure. That's why you brought me, isn't it? To tell you things you already half suspected, but with more adjectives." His gaze narrowed, weighing what was evasion and what was truth. For a second, I wondered if he'd push harder, pull rank, try to drag whatever it was he thought I was hiding out into the open. But Dale Kincaid, apparently, didn't like pressing emotional buttons without a clear tactical advantage. His scent shifted, a faint sharpening of rain before it settled again. "We're done here for now," he said. "Forensics will finish the sweep. I want your written analysis on my desk within 2 hours. Focus on pattern recognition." "Pattern recognition," I repeated. "Sure. That I can do." I glanced back at the triangle. My chest ached in a way I refused to name. He started toward the door, then paused. "Laurent." "Yeah?" "When I entered this unit," he said slowly, "I thought we were dealing with a shifter who had graduated from generic predation to targeted psychological warfare." He nodded toward the mirror behind me. "Now I'm not sure it's as generic as I hoped." I swallowed. "Welcome to the 'oh good it's personal' club." His eyes met mine, no glass between us now, Do you know this person? A beat of silence. The triangle burned at my back. I pulled my mouth into a smirk I didn't feel. You give me far too much credit, Commander. If I knew a mirror-obsessed shifter with a thing for Omega minds, Don, that you think HR would have made us do a fun little debrief by now? That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting, unless you want to start paying me as a consultant for my childhood, I said lightly. And you don't strike me as generous. His jaw clenched again, but he let it go. For now, he said. Once we're back at the station, we'll cross-reference all your previous cases for... Of course we will, I cut in. Can't wait to relive the greatest hits. He turned away. The uniform at the door snapped to attention as he approached, sense spiking with nerves. Dale gave them a curt nod, then stepped out into the hallway. I stayed 1 second longer, alone with the mirrors. In a dozen crooked shards, my own reflection looked back at me. Tired eyes, cheekbones too sharp from too many skipped meals, lips pressed thin. In one shard, just for an instant, I swore I saw a different face behind mine, a familiar grin, dark eyes bright with mischief and something crueler. A fingertip tapping a triangle into glass. Angles, little L. I blinked hard. The face was gone. Just me. And the faint ghost of the symbol behind my shoulder. I dragged in a breath that tasted like dust and fear and stale cologne, and followed. My very composed, very dangerous commander out into the ordinary stink of the hallway. This wasn't a random shifter. It was someone who knew how to aim at me. The drive back started in silence so dense, it might as well have been another passenger. City lights dragged across the windshield, smearing into pale lines when we passed under them. The sky was sinking from gray to bruised purple, and the river on our left reflected just enough neon to look like someone had poured oil over it. Dale drove like he did everything else, controlled, economical, no wasted motion. Hands at 10 and 2, gaze flicking between the road and the mirrors. His scent was tighter than usual, the storm cloud tang of him compressed into something sharper. Not anger. Not exactly. Tension. Drawn out like a wire. I stared out my window and counted the cracks in the sidewalk as we rolled past. Breaking the silence felt like volunteering for execution, so of course he did it first. Who left that symbol on the mirror? No preamble. No easing in. Just that. I shrugged without looking at him. Could have been the perp marking territory. Could have been the victim, scratching random shapes while his mind was turning into scrambled eggs. I'm sure forensics will tell us it's approximately triangle-shaped. Laurent. Just my name, but the warning in it was clear. You reacted before you saw it clearly. Congratulations, I said. Your observational skills remain terrifying. Who left it? He repeated. Maybe it's just a triangle, and I'm just very passionate about geometry. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. The leather creaked softly. I saw his knuckles shift in my peripheral vision. Skin stretched over bone. Your heart rate spiked when you saw it, he said. Your breathing changed. You blocked my view. You lied. I evaded. I corrected. It's different. Lying is when you say something untrue. Evading is when you say something so irritating the other person forgets the question. Do you know the person who did this? He asked, ignoring that. The streetlight washed gold over his face as we passed under it, carving shadows into the hard lines of his jaw. Rain scent and pine pressed faint against the air between us, a presence I felt more in memory than in nose. I could have told him the truth right then. I could have said, I don't know for certain, but I know the handwriting. I know the way he angles mirrors when he wants you to see your own fear. I know the smell of the resin he uses in his hair, and the way he laughs when he's about to do something unforgivable. Instead, my tongue did what it had learned to do for survival. It's a common shape, I said. Triangles, very popular. Strong on all three sides. The muscle in his cheek jumped. His scent shifted a fraction, edges sharpening like the air before lightning hits. You're obstructing an investigation, he said. Big word for having boundaries. I don't care about your boundaries, he snapped. I flinched, just a little. He heard it, inhaled like he was about to apologize, then apparently remembered who he was and didn't. I care about stopping whoever is targeting Omegas, he said, back in that cold, clipped register. If you know something about them, you tell me. That's not optional. I watched our reflections slide across the side window. His profile, all hard angles. And discipline. Mine, softer. A smear of eyes and too long hair and exhaustion. Streetlights cut bars of shadow over both of us, like we were already behind some kind of glass cage. The funny thing about being an Omega with no scent is that people forget you can smell them just fine. Dale smelled like someone who had never allowed himself to be surprised by betrayal, because he'd never allowed anyone close enough for it. Must be nice. Here's the thing, Commander, I said quietly. The last time I told an alpha everything I knew, he died. The silence that followed felt like the car had dropped into a tunnel, even though we were still on the bridge. Dale didn't look at me. The tendons in his hands stood out pale on the steering wheel. That in your file, he asked, or is this one of those secrets you're saving for dramatic effect? Neither, I said. It's one of those stories HR puts you in a room with a soft-voiced counselor for, and then they write non-compliant on your form when you refuse to cry on schedule. His mouth flattened, but he didn't push. Not right then. The rest of the ride back to the precinct stayed quiet. Not a comfortable silence, but one held together by fraying restraint. By the time we rolled into the underground garage, my shoulders ached from holding myself so still. The thing about PACs is, they never really leave you alone, even when they're gone. Back upstairs, while Dale disappeared into a briefing with forensics, I sat at my desk and did what I was supposed to do, wrote up my notes, annotated photos, traced angles of mirrors on a digital layout. On the surface, I was being a good detective. Underneath, my brain was replaying a highlight reel of bad decisions. We weren't a big pack back then. 6 of us, on the outskirts of the city. 2 alphas, 3 betas, 1 omega. Me. I'd been the youngest, the last one taken in. A half-feral stray with a too loud scent and a bad habit of mouthing off at the wrong time. Our lead alpha, Elias, had smelled like cedar and smoke, and the kind of steady warmth you could build a life around. He'd taught me how to anchor my scent, how to curl it around my own bones instead of flinging it out like a flag. When my first heat had hit like a freight train, he'd sat on the other side of my bedroom door all night, his scent a solid wall keeping the world at bay. You're not a burden, he'd said. You're ours. Our other alpha, Ash, wasn't technically an alpha at all. He didn't like the word. Said it came with too much baggage. On paper he tested as high beta, low alpha. In reality, he was whatever the hell he wanted to be at any given moment. Ash smelled like resin and tobacco, and the wild wet green of the woods after rain. He laughed a lot. Moved like the world was a game he was winning. He baited Elias until Elias sighed, then wrapped himself around both of us like we were his favorite toys. He was the one who drew triangles in fogged-up car windows and bathroom mirrors. 1 point for you, 1 for me, 1 for Elias, he'd said the first time, tapping each corner in turn. You picked us, little L, remember that. You chose this pack? I had chosen. That was the worst part. When the operation went sideways, when the intel we'd been given turned out to be a trap, when bullets sang through the warehouse and the smell of cordite and blood drowned everything else, when Elias shoved me behind a stack of crates and shouted stay. And Ash wasn't there where he should have been. My scent had exploded into raw panic. When it was over, Elias lay in a spreading pool of red that smelled too much like rust and not enough like wolf. Ash was gone. The only thing he'd left behind was the faint, decaying echo of his scent near the entrance and the knowledge that the door had been unlatched from the inside. After that, my own scent had never gone back to normal. It curled inward, then collapsed, like a star imploding into itself. Tests said my receptors and glands were functioning. Out in the world, alphas frowned when they tried to read me, and got nothing but static. Broken, the file had said, in more polite words. An omega, with no readable scent. A packless stray with a ghost where his alpha should be. The Special Shifter Crimes Unit had taken me in because I could still think. Because I could put pieces together. Because even without a pack, I understood how packs worked. I hadn't told them that the only reason I understood predators so well was that I'd once chosen one and called him family. So when I saw that triangle today, scratched into mirror glass above a kneeling omega's broken scent, the world tilted. It couldn't be Ash. A lot of people like triangles, angles, mirrors. But my gut was already answering, traitor that it was. It could. It could. It could. I didn't get much time to indulge in psychological self-harm. The call came in just as I was finishing the draft of my report. Dispatch's voice crackled over the open channel. All units be advised. Possible. 10 to 91C, shifter-related abduction, District 12. Caller reports an Omega dragged into vehicle. Last seen near Pier 7. My pulse spiked. 12 was close. Dale emerged from his office at the first words, already sliding his holster into place. He caught my eye across the floor. Laurent, with me. No time for sarcasm. I grabbed my coat and ran. The air down by Pier 7 smelled like the river trying to pretend it wasn't polluted. We got there ahead of most uniform units, the cruiser's tires squealing as Dale pulled to the curb. Night had fallen properly now. The streetlights threw tired cones of orange that barely cut through the dark. A small crowd clustered near a row of storage units, wrapped in their own fear and curiosity. The sharp citrus edge of a distressed Omega cut through the ambient smells like a flare. Dale showed his badge. People moved aside. The caller was a young beta dockworker with grease on his hands and panic in his eyes. He kept wringing his cap between his fingers as he spoke. He was just walking, the guy said. Just walking, man, and this van pulled up, and this guy got out, and his scent went crazy like he couldn't breathe, and then he was just gone. Slow down, I said, keeping my voice calm. You know the Omega? He nodded. Yeah, Rian. He works down here. He was supposed to meet me for a smoke. His voice broke. He looked so scared. Description of the vehicle, Dale said. Color, make, plate if you got it. Dark van. I didn't see the plate, I'm sorry, His scent was spiraling toward panic attack. I stepped in closer, letting my voice cut across the rising noise in his head. Hey. You did good, I said. You called it in, that's more than most. We'll pull camera footage, alright? You're not the only set of eyes on this. He nodded, breathing hitching. Some of the sharpness in his scent easing. While Dale sent uniforms to secure the area and canvas for CCTV, I followed the thin thread of Omega scent Rian had left behind. It was streaked with pure terror, as expected. But something else wove through it. Something familiar in the worst way. A hint of pine. Not Dale's stormy pine. This was sweeter, resinous, mixed with the ghost of a cheap, sugary energy drink and cold metal. My heart slammed against my ribs. He's here. He's here. He's here. I swallowed hard and forced my brain back into work mode. The scent trail cut off near a stretch of cracked concrete where the van had apparently idled. There, faint as a ghost above the exhaust stink, was the same alpha signature we'd found in the loft. Controlled. Precise. And under that, like a whisper just for me, the barest trace of something from long ago. He'd laced his scent with pine on purpose. Elias had smelled of cedar. Ash had taken to wearing pine resin like a joke. Gotta keep the theme going, little L, he'd said once, smirking as he rubbed sticky sap between his fingers. We're a forest, not a zoo. I shut my eyes for a second, inhaling once, deeply, trying to be objective. To pull data, not ghosts. When I opened them again, my gaze caught on the side panel of the nearest storage unit. There, near eye level and half hidden in shadow, someone had dragged 3 fingers through the old dust on the metal. A triangle. 1 point up. Beneath it 3 letters, also drawn with a fingertip. L-O-Z. It wasn't my given name. It was the pack nickname Ash had saddled me with. Laws, short for Laurent, long on mockery and affection. I stared at it, until the lines blurred. Laurent? Dale's voice came from behind me, closer than I'd thought he was. What do you have? I stepped sideways on instinct, blocking his direct view. My body moved before my brain could catch up. Nothing? I said. Just his scent, then cut off where the van was. Same alpha trace as at the loft. The lie tasted sour. Dale stopped. I could feel his gaze like a hand between my shoulder blades. You're sure, he said. Pretty sure, I said. Pretty sure is not the same as sure. What do you want, Commander? I snapped, spinning to face him. A PowerPoint? There was a van. It took an Omega. I didn't see it. The scent says same perp, different location. That's what we've got. His eyes narrowed, that storm inside them gathering. I want, he said slowly, an Omega detective who is not so busy playing games. With his own secrets that he withholds evidence from his commanding officer. The words hit harder than they should have. I laughed, but there wasn't much humor in it. You don't pull punches, do you? No, he said. I don't. We stood there in the half-light, the distance between us suddenly crowded with everything we weren't saying. You're hiding something, he went on. That symbol at the loft, the way you reacted here. Someone is sending a message, and I'd bet my career it's not addressed to me. You're the constant. So I will ask you one more time, detective. His voice dropped, quiet and lethal. What do you know? Something inside me snapped. What do I know? I echoed. I know that an Omega is missing, and if we waste another minute on your control issues, he might not come back whole. I know that you smell like command and gunpowder, and You think that entitles you to every memory in my head. I know that every time an alpha told me to trust them before, it ended with me bleeding or someone else dead. His scent flared, sharp and electric, but he didn't step back. You're compromising this investigation, he said. You're letting your past dictate. My past is why I'm any good at this, I shouted. A couple of uniforms glanced our way, and then very ostentatiously pretended they hadn't. You brought me because I understand how this guy thinks. Newsflash, Commander. People who understand monsters rarely get that way by reading about them in books. He took a step closer. We were chest to chest now, almost the same height, his eyes boring into mine. You are not my soldier, he said. You are not my Omega. I am not interested in owning you. I am interested in stopping a predator, and right now, you are making that harder. I'm not yours, I said. Exactly. So stop acting like you get to reach into my head and rearrange the furniture. You can't command me with your scent, Dale. There's nothing there to grab. That's precisely the problem, he said through his teeth. You're so convinced you're untouchable, that you keep walking into fire without a gear check. You're easy to hurt. And if you get yourself broken in the field because you can't admit you're connected to this, you don't just damage yourself, you damage this investigation. You damage the next Omega who gets taken because we missed a piece of the pattern that lives in your memory. The way he said easy to hurt made something in my chest twist. I am not your weak point, I said hoarsely. You are a weak point, he shot back. Because you keep pretending you aren't. For a second, neither of us moved. His scent was a storm held just on the verge of breaking. My non-existent scent hummed around me like a hollow. I was shaking. And I hated that he could see it even if he couldn't smell it. I need air, I said. Preferably some that isn't saturated with your everything, Laurent. No. I cut him off. You got your lecture quota in for the day. Congratulations. I'm going back to the station. You can stay here and Alpha at the traffic cones. I turned before he could say anything else and walked away, every step brittle. I half expected him to grab my arm, turn me around, pull rank. He didn't. The longer I stayed, the more I could feel the dust-drawn triangle burning between my shoulder blades like a brand. My feet carried me to the car almost on autopilot. By the time I slid into the passenger seat, I felt hollowed out. Back at the station, the fluorescent lights seemed too bright. The bullpen buzzed with activity, calls, reports, the coffee machine's death rattle. I dropped into my chair and stared at my monitor without seeing it. Easy to hurt. I hated him a little for being right. At some point, Dale returned. I felt him before I saw him, in the way conversations shifted, in the way Malik's eyes darted from me to the stairs and back. I didn't look up when the commander crossed the floor. Didn't look when his office door shut. I focused very hard on the report template in front of me, and filled in fields I'd probably have to edit later. It wasn't until the room had thinned out a bit, people going home, night shift rolling in, that I let myself drift to the windows. The city pressed against the glass, all neon and motion and anonymous lives. I stood there with my hands in my pockets, breathing slow, trying to unknot the mess in my chest. My reflection stared back at me, pale, tired, hair a little too long. Behind it, the ghosted reflections of desks and chairs and whiteboards full of case notes. The glass shimmered. For a second, I thought it was my eyes. Then the lights outside flickered, and the shimmer focused. A faint shape appeared on the inside surface, like fog on a cold day. Except the room was warm, and no one was close enough to breathe on it. A fingertip dragged down the glass from somewhere inside my reflection, then up again, then again. Triangle. My breath hitched. I backed up one step, heart thudding. No one else in the room seemed to notice. Voices droned on. Keyboards clicked. A second line of letters followed the triangle, appearing as if an invisible hand was writing them from the other side. MEETME. NEARWHEREYOUFIRSTCHOSEME. The words hung there, pale and precise, on the glass between me and the city. Where you first chose me, I whispered. For me, that was one place. A half-collapsed train bridge on the edge of the industrial district. Rust and weeds. A night when I'd been more bruised than boy, and a charming wolf with resin on his fingers had leaned against the railing and said, "You can come with me, little L. Or you can go back to people who think your scent is a mistake." I'd chosen him. The writing on the window pulsed once, like it was reacting to the memory. Then it faded, the triangle dissolving into harmless streaks. I stood there, cold all over despite the overheated room. He wasn't hunting omegas. He was hunting me. The warehouse sat on the river like it was waiting to fall in. An old brick husk, windows half-boarded, loading doors rusted shut. Someone had spray-painted a dragon on the side years ago, now it was just a smear of color under street lamp glow. The air was colder here, closer to the water, carrying the damp rot of river mud and iron. Inside it was worse. The concrete floor had taken on a thin sheen of moisture, just enough to turn it reflective. Every step landed with a soft echo and a shimmer, like I was walking on the surface of a dark lake. Light leaked in through the high broken windows in pale strips, cutting the big open space into bands of shadow and gray. And there were mirrors. Rows of them hung from the ceiling on chains of varying length, a forest of glass and metal. Some were whole, some fractured, some just big shards suspended like crude wind chimes. They swayed slowly in the faint draft from a broken window, creaking like tired bones. I'd told no one I was coming. Leaving the station had been embarrassingly easy. Night shift in full swing, cases stacked, everyone looking anywhere but at the Omega, staring too long at the windows. I'd turned off the external notification on my tracker. Not the tracker itself. Just the push alerts. One small setting change. A technicality. I'd left my phone in my desk drawer, screen face down. If I looked at that too closely, I might call it running away. So I didn't. I stepped further into the warehouse. Heart thudding, eyes adjusting. My reflection multiplied around me in warped fragments, an arm here, a cheek there. A dozen versions of my face, peering back with varying degrees of unease. You always did have a flair for the dramatic, I said, voice echoing off steel and concrete. You couldn't just text like a normal sociopath? The answer came from everywhere at once. Well, where's the fun in that, little L? The voice rolled through the mirror forest like smoke. Warm. Laughing. Familiar enough that every muscle in my body tried to both tense and relax at once. He stepped into one of the strips of light. Ash hadn't changed much. Time had done that annoying thing where it made him more handsome, not less. Still tall, still that lazy, predatory grace. Shoulders relaxed like he'd never carried anything heavier than his own charm. Dark hair longer than I remembered, pushed back carelessly. Mouth curved in a smile that could sell you anything. And he smelled the same. Bitter resin and sweet cheap tobacco, and the undernote of wild green. It hit me like a punch, and an embrace at the same time. I held my ground. Ash, I said, because pretending I didn't know his name would have been pointless. He put a hand over his heart, mock wounded. You say it like you're disappointed. I am, I said. You used to be smarter than to leave evidence with your initials on it. He laughed. That soft, delighted sound that used to mean he was genuinely amused and occasionally about to ruin someone's week. Ah, laws, he said. You always did underestimate my ego. Come on, give me a hug for old time's sake? I didn't move. Where is he? I asked. Ash's smile sharpened. Straight to business. Kincaid really has rubbed off on you, hasn't he? All mission, no play. I didn't let myself rise to the bait. The Omega, Rian. Ash's gaze skimmed over me, lingering on the badge at my belt, the weapons I wasn't carrying, the way my hands stayed at my sides and not in my pockets. We both knew I hadn't brought a gun. In spaces like this, guns were as likely to hurt hostages as help. For the record, he said, I am insulted you thought you had to sneak out alone. What? You didn't trust Commander Stormcloud not to follow you and wag his tail at the nearest jurisdiction line? He's not my anything, I said. And you invited me. Not him. His eyes glinted. Exactly. He gestured, an expansive sweep of his arm. Come on, he said. He's this way. Try not to trip. I put a lot of work into the ambiance. We wove through the hanging mirrors. They chimed softly when our shoulders brushed the chains. With every step, Ash's scent wrapped thicker around the space, layered with something else. Fear, stale and sour. My wolf. It deserved a better name than that. It was small and stubborn and held together with scars, crowded close to my ribs, clawing at my insides. We turned a final row, and there he was. Rian knelt on the slick concrete, wrists bound loosely in front of him with zip ties, ankles tied to a metal ring set in the floor, enough slack to shift, not enough to run. A mirror stood propped in front of him, tilted just so that he had to see himself if he looked up. He didn't look up. His head hung, dark hair falling over his face. His clothes were rumpled, smudged with dirt, not blood. His scent was wrong. Not erased, not totally. just thinned, smeared. The bright citrus I remembered from the docks was now a faint ghost over exhaustion and terror. Like someone had scrubbed at him with mental sandpaper. "Hey," I said, dropping into a crouch a few feet away, careful not to crowd him. "Rian, it's Laurent. From Pier 7, remember me?" He flinched at my voice. His head lifted an inch, eyes flicking toward me. There was someone inside them. That was something. "Why you came?" he whispered, voice rough. "Of course I did," I said. "You asked for the cops. I'm the discount version, but I still count." A weak, broken huff of a laugh, then his gaze slid past me over my shoulder. His breath hitched. He could smell ash. Of course he could. I didn't turn. "What did he do to you?" I asked, keeping my voice low. Rian swallowed, throat bobbing. "He talked, just talked. Kept saying I was tired, useless, said no one would come. His eyes flicked to the mirror, then away, like it burned. He made me watch," he whispered. "Said I had to see what I looked like when I finally gave up. Said it would be a mercy." My hands curled into fists so hard my nails bit my palms. "Okay," I said. "Okay. You're here, you're breathing, and I'm going to get you out of this, all right?" That's the part he forgot to mention. Omegas are very bad at doing what we're told. Ash sighed theatrically behind me. There it is. The savior complex. Elias would be proud. I stood slowly, turning to face him. "Don't," I said. "Don't say his name." Ash tilted his head, studying me. His eyes were the same dark brown they'd always been, but the warmth in them had curdled. "Why not?" he asked softly. "He's the reason you're here, Laws. He's why you joined the nice little special unit that likes to send Omegas into hell with a pat on the head and a, 'Good luck, kid.' You're still trying to make up for him." "By stopping people like you," I said. "Yeah. That's kind of the point." He smiled. "See, that's where we disagree. I'm stopping people like them. The ones who use you. Devin, you've met him, right? Beta, nervous eyes, coffee addiction, thinks he's subtle when he sniffs. You trying to figure out what you are now. Or Commander Kincaid, with his perfect posture, and his perfect rules, and his perfect, utterly repressed reactions every time you mouth off. You've been watching the unit, I realized. Relax. I'm not stalking your little boyfriend," he said lightly. "He's just hard to miss. Smells like a storm trying very hard not to happen." He took a step closer, letting his scent push at the edges of mine. My body remembered it intimately, my mind wanted to crawl out of my skin. "Tell me, little L," he murmured. "When he stands too close, when he tries to read a scent that isn't there, do you feel relieved, or do you feel lonely?" I swallowed. "You're fishing." "I'm right," he said. "Elias died because he obeyed orders based on rotten intel from people who saw him as expendable. I chose not to die with him. That's what you call betrayal. I call it refusing to be someone's attack dog." "You opened the door," I said. "You left it unlatched for them. You knew. You didn't warn him." For a second, something flickered in his expression. Then it was gone. "I warned him plenty of times," Ash said. "He chose loyalty to the badge over loyalty to the pack. Look where that got him. Look where it got you." He swept his hand to indicate the warehouse, the mirrors, Ryan on the floor. "Now you work for the same kind of people," he said. "The ones who put cents in boxes and say, Alpha here, Omega there, Beta in the middle, everyone follow protocol, and maybe you won't die today." I'm just showing Omegas the truth, Laws. No one's coming. They need to see themselves as they are without a pack to cover the smell. "Is that what you told Rian?" I asked. "That you're doing him a favor while you carve his scent out from the inside?" "He'll thank me eventually," Ash said. "Funny," I said. He didn't smell very grateful. His mouth curved vicious and amused. "You always did cover fear with sarcasm. It's cute." He stepped even closer. We were a few feet apart now, the mirrors around us catching angles of his face and mine, multiplying us into a chorus of ghosts. "I called you here because I'm nostalgic," he said. "You were my favorite. The way you looked at me like I was gravity, the way you chose me. I wanted to see if you'd do it again, now that you've given your leash hand to the uniformed brigade." "I don't wear leashes," I said. "You should remember that. You tried enough collars." "True," he mused. "But you do love belonging. You love being chosen back. Tell me, has Kincaid done that yet? Has he said, 'You're mine' with that stern voice of his? Or does he just tell you where to stand and how not to break?" "You're projecting," I said. "It's embarrassing." He chuckled, then dropped his voice. silk over steel. You still smell like him, you know, he said. Not in the way you used to smell like Elias, that was mutual. This is different. You smell like someone who's trying very hard not to want something he thinks he can't have. You can't smell me at all, I snapped. Heat rushing up my neck. That's the whole point, remember? I broke. Ash's smile lost some of its softness. Oh, laws, he said. Just because your signature went fuzzy doesn't mean nothing's left. I may not catch the tune, but I can hear the static. He tapped his chest. And I know you. That's enough. I had to physically stop myself from taking a step back. He saw the hesitation anyway. His eyes gleamed. Here's how this goes, he said. We have 3 options. 1. You walk out now, leave the boy, pretend you never saw any of this. I finish my little experiment. He gets freed from the delusion of rescue. You go back to your commander and never speak of me again. No, I said. He nodded, as if he'd expected that. 2, he went on. You call in your unit. They surround the place. I panic, slit the boy's throat, and use you as a shield to get out. You get a dead Omega, a wounded Conscience, and a very angry Kincaid. He spread his hands, like a magician revealing his final trick. And 3, you make a choice. You remove your tracker, send your good little commander on a wild goose chase somewhere, nice and public where he can flex his authority, and you stay here with me. We talk. We reminisce. I let the boy go once I'm done proving my point. No one else gets hurt. Rion's breath stuttered behind me. You expect me to just take your word for that, I said. He rolled his eyes. You act like I don't keep my promises. I told you I'd never lay a hand on you didn't want, didn't I? That much was always true. I don't need to break you physically. Other people did that for me. My stomach twisted. He dies if you call them, Ash said, the warmth gone from his tone now, leaving only the cool, precise alpha timbre beneath. He lives if you don't. Simple. He took a breath, inhaling deeply, the way alphas did when they were about to wrap a room in their intent. And before you say it, he added, yes, I know you. You can't let him die. You'll drag yourself through glass to spare a stranger. That's why Elias loved you. That's why I liked you. That's why they're using you now. So. He nodded toward my wrist, where the thin band of my tracker sat under my sleeve. Take it off. My hand moved toward it without my permission. I stopped myself halfway, fingers hovering over the fabric. If I take it off, I said, throat rough, the unit will know. Eventually, he said. By then it'll be too late for them to play hero. Or you can compromise, You're good at middle roads. Turn off location updates, send Kincaid somewhere busy, say you've got a lead. He's a good little soldier, he'll follow. And you? You'll finally get what you always wanted. My laugh came out harsh. And what's that exactly? A choice, Ash said simply. Not an order. You chose me once, choose me again, and the boy walks, choose him, and, well, you'll hear him scream before the sirens get close. The worst part was that I believed him. Not because I trusted him, because I remembered how efficient he could be when he decided someone's suffering was necessary. I glanced back at Rian. His eyes were wide, fixed on me, pleading and terrified, and already halfway to that catatonic shutdown we'd seen in the others. I couldn't do it. I couldn't let him become another broken cent in a file. Fine, I said. My voice felt like it belonged to someone else. You win. Ash's smile came back, bright and pleased. Of course I do. I slipped my fingers under my sleeve and found the latch on the tracker. It clicked open with a soft, final sound. The metal cooled against my palm. Somewhere, back at the station, a system would register the loss of connection. Alerts would start. Procedures would follow. Ash watched, eyes shining. Now your phone, he said. Send your commander a little breadcrumb. Something that sounds just urgent enough to get him moving. I didn't bring my phone, I said. His smile thinned. Don't lie. I sighed and dug into my pocket. I'd slipped my personal phone in as I left, habit overriding my earlier bravado. Of course he'd guessed. He knew me better than I wanted to admit. I thumbed it on. No messages yet. No frantic calls from the unit. Good. I typed fast. Got a lead. Sighted van from Pier 7 near Warehouse 12 on dockside. Going in to confirm. Send backup there, not here. Warehouse 12 was 3 miles away, a legitimate derelict we'd used as a training ground once. Public enough to justify officers flooding it. Empty enough not to get anyone killed. Ash leaned in, reading over my shoulder. I knew you still had a little liar in you, he murmured approvingly. I hit send. The message flew off into the digital abyss, carrying my particular brand of treason with it. Then, slowly, I powered the phone down and set it on the floor, nudging it away with my foot like it might bite. Ash clapped once, softly. "Good boy," he said. "Don't," I snapped. He just laughed. "See?" he said. "That wasn't so hard, was it? Just like old times. You and me, against the world." I looked back at Rian, then at the dark shape of my tracker in my hand, then at the empty air where, somewhere in the city, Dale would be reading my message and moving. If I wanted to survive this, I had to betray someone. I just hoped I chose right. If guilt had a smell, it would have been the air in that warehouse. Thick, metallic, damp with the river and old blood and newer fear. My own scent, such as it was, curled in on itself, useless as ever. Ash's scent pressed over everything else like resin-glazed fingers on a throat. He toyed with the mirror nearest him, running a knuckle along the edge. Reflections slid across its surface, the hanging chains, Rian's bowed head, my own face, pale and strained. "See?" Ash said. "Already better. Just you, me, and the boy. No uniforms. No barking. No one to tell you who you are." "Funny," I said. "Feels a lot like someone telling me who I am." He clucked his tongue. Always with the backtalk. "I missed that." I didn't answer. I was busy. My phone lay dark on the floor where I'd kicked it. The tracker sat cold in my palm, the clasp open. Ash thought it was dead. That had been the point. What he didn't know was that I hadn't just taken it off. I'd reset it. Shifters weren't the only ones who learned to live by scent and silence. Detectives learn to live by small print. When you work with people who smell lies better than dogs smell bacon, you get good at the technical lies. The kind that live in interface menus and timing. The moment the latch opened, the tracker had pinged the system, device removed, last known location logged. I'd palmed it and taken 3 steps to the left before dropping it into a shallow puddle glinting with oil. To the network back at the station, it would look like I'd gone offline in the middle of the river-adjacent grid. Not at Warehouse 12. Not completely lost. Just enough to make a certain over-controlled commander look up from my conveniently misleading text and say, "That's wrong." At least, that had been the gamble. If I'd read Dale wrong, if he trusted my written word more than his instincts, then Ryan and I were probably screwed. Ash seemed confident we were screwed. "You know what the best part of this is?" he mused, strolling between the mirrors, his reflection multiplying with every step like a deck of cards being fanned. "No matter what happens, you can't blame me. You had a choice. You took off your own leash. You sent your own nice stern commander away. You did it to yourself." "Self-blame is kind of my brand," I said. "Thanks for the reminder." He smiled, teeth white in the dim light. "Always happy to support your personal growth." Behind me, Rian made a small noise. A suppressed sob, or a strangled breath, I couldn't tell. I angled my body more squarely between him and Ash without thinking. "You said you'd let him go," I said. "And I will," Ash said. "Eventually. But first, I'd like to see something." "What?" "You," he said simply. "Without anyone else's rules. Without some alpha's voice in your ear, telling you when to eat and when to rest and when to be brave. I want to see who you chose. Now that you know what the world really is." "I chose to be here instead of letting him die," I said. "That's what I chose." Ash's gaze warmed. "Exactly. That's my boy." I fought not to flinch. "You keep saying that," I said. "Like you had anything to do with who I turned into." "Oh, but I did." He stepped closer, spreading his arms wide. "You've built your entire career around cleaning up messes Pax make of Omegas. Who taught you that we were capable of breaking them in the first place?" I hated that he was right. "I'm not here to debate ethics with the shifter equivalent of a TED Talk," I said. "Let him go." He sighed and moved past me, toward Rian. My body moved before my brain finished forming the thought. I stepped into his path. It wasn't smart. He had at least 50 pounds on me, and more functional scent channels, and a history of winning fights I wanted to forget. But every instinct I had left aligned in one clean line, between Ash and the boy, side on, knees loose, ready to move. "Don't," I said. Ash stopped, not because he had to, because he wanted to see what I'd do. "Laws," he said softly. "Don't make me test which one of you breaks first. I know the answer. I've always known it. You bruise easy." "You're not my alpha," I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. "You don't get to decide how breakable I am anymore." Something in his eyes cooled. Elias said something like that. Once, he murmured. He was wrong. He flicked 2 fingers toward the nearest mirror. It swung gently. Light slid over our faces, slicing them into alternating brightness and shadow. Look, he said. We've done this before, you and I. Mirrors, angles. I show you what you are. You believe me. That was the deal. I was stupid, I said. I was 17. He shrugged. Same thing. He moved then. Not toward me. Around me. He didn't need sent commands or alpha presence to do damage here. This was his playground. Every swinging mirror, every reflective surface, every strip of light was a piece on his board. He stepped left, then right, always keeping half his body in the shadows, half in the light, multiplying himself in glass until I couldn't tell which version was real. The air thickened with his scent, resin and smoke and the electric buzz of intent. Rian's breathing sped up behind me, hitching on every inhale. Don't look at him, I said over my shoulder. Rian, hey, look at me. He dragged his gaze from the mirror in front of him to my face. His pupils were blown wide, scent fraying. Is he real? Rian whispered. Are you? Unfortunately, yes, I said. Both of us. Good news is I'm on your side. Questionable news, I'm not big on winning fights, so let's try something new. I didn't have scent commands or pack bonds, but I did have one thing Ash couldn't take. Familiarity with his patterns. He liked to come from the left. He always had. He liked the reverse angle, the blind spot. He'd drilled it into us until we moved to compensate without thinking. So I did something stupid. I shut my eyes. The world narrowed down to breath and sound, and the faint vibration of chains. Without sight, the mirrors lost their power. No more angles. No more extra ashes crowding my vision. Just the slick floor under my boots, the damp chill moving across my skin, the rasp of his shoes on concrete when he shifted his weight. He laughed, low and delighted. Oh, laws, he said. Playing blind, really? It's called refusing to indulge your aesthetic, I said. You're dramatic enough without my help. He moved. I heard it in the rush of air on my right, the brief jangle of a chain. He was trying to fake me out, to see if I'd flinch the wrong way. I didn't move. You're not the only one who can run drills, I said. I lived in that pack too, remember? You taught me this game. He exhaled, scent flaring. He launched himself then, fast. I stepped left, into him. We collided chest to chest, momentum slamming into me like a freight train. Pain flared along my ribs where bone met bone. I hooked my foot behind his heel and shoved, not hard enough to try to take him down, just enough to knock him off his perfect line. We spun, boots slipping on the wet concrete, shoulders smacking into a swinging mirror. Glass chimed dangerously overhead. He grunted, more surprised than hurt. You learned something after all. I had good teachers, I panted. I cracked my eyes open for a second to reorient. Bad idea. The mirrored forest exploded back into being, full of ash and not ash, my own pale face in slices, Rian's terrified eyes, the dark ribs of the ceiling rafters. My balance wobbled. Ash used it. His hand clamped around my throat, not squeezing, not yet, just a warm, firm reminder of where his strength was and where mine wasn't. He shoved me back against a support post, pinning me there with his body. Shh, he said. Easy. I'm not going to hurt you, Laws. Not if you don't make me. You already did, I said. Years ago. He tilted his head, studying me. I felt his breath on my cheek. You're angry, he observed. Good. Anger means you still care. It means they haven't numbed you entirely. My hands braced against his shoulders. I didn't push. Pushing would have been a lie. I trembled with the effort of not doing anything else, like sagging or leaning in or screaming. Let him go, I said, nodding toward Rian. You made your point. On brand, by the way. Very theatrical. And if I do? Ash murmured. You'll go back to Kincaid. He'll pat you on the head and say good job, detective, and you'll tuck all this away and pretend you didn't almost choose me again. I didn't choose you, I said. I chose not to let him die. He smiled slightly. You keep saying that. Like it's different. There was a sound then. Soft. Distant. A drip? A chain? No. My wolf recognized it before my conscious mind did. Footsteps on old metal stairs. Ash's head snapped up, eyes narrowing. You lied, he said softly. For once, no, I said. Because I hadn't promised I was alone. He shoved me away from the post, sending me stumbling. His scent surged, angry now, crackling with ozone. The mirrors shivered. You sent him away, he growled. I watched him leave the precinct. I smelled his car on dockside. You gave him a location we've used in training, I said, catching my balance. You really think a commander with his nose doesn't know the difference between a warehouse that smells like fresh dust and an old river rat like this place? Ash bared his teeth. You little... The rest of the word drowned under the screech of a door opening above us. Ash Valent, a voice rang out, amplified by the cavernous space. Stay where you are. Dale's voice. I'd never heard it like that. Not the clipped, controlled tone from briefings. Not the blunt, unimpressed edge he used on me. This was full command, thrown into the ribs of the building. His scent rolled in with it, a storm finally allowed to break. Rain and pine and something edged with steel. He was high, on the metal walkway that circled the warehouse near the ceiling. Silhouette cut against the grimy windows, weapon drawn, gaze sweeping the mirror forest. Ash laughed, sharp and incredulous. Wow, he said. You got him to yell. I'm impressed. You should be worried, I said. Dale's eyes found us. Found me. Locked on. Laurent, he said. Down. He didn't say please, but his voice dipped. Just enough that my wolf twitched in startled instinct. I dropped without thinking. Ash moved at the same time, grabbing for me, using me as cover. A mirror shattered overhead, raining down glass where my head had just been. Dale didn't shoot again. He hadn't been aiming to kill. He'd been aiming to distract. Let the Omega go, he called. Technically, I wheezed from the floor. We're both Omegas down here. Not helping, Dale said, voice clipped. Ash snarled softly, hand fisting in the back of my coat. How did he find us? Your scent's not as original as you think, I said. Also, maybe don't teach someone your entire toolkit then be surprised when they use it. I twisted, jamming my elbow back into his ribs. He grunt cursed and loosened his grip, just enough for me to slip free and roll toward Ryan. Ryan, I said urgently, eyes on me. When I say crawl, you crawl, okay? Don't look at the mirrors. He nodded, shaking. Valent, Dale called, voice dropping back to that chilling calm. You are surrounded? He wasn't. Not yet. I could hear the sirens in the distance, growing louder, but they weren't here. Ash could too. His eyes flared wide. You lied to him, he hissed at me. You lied to me. I told you, I said. I'm good at middle roads. He lunged for Ryan. I moved. I didn't think about odds. I didn't think about how much stronger he was, or how much more training he'd had in tearing people apart, instead of putting them back together. I put myself between Ash and the boy and let momentum carry us both into the nearest mirror. Glass screamed. We hit hard. The mirror swung back on its chain, then forward again, into Ash's shoulder. He snarled. I grabbed for his wrist, the one reaching for Ryan, and hung on with everything I had. Run, I gasped. Ryan didn't run. He crawled. Good enough. While Ash was distracted by 25 inconvenient pieces of me clinging to his arm, Ryan scrambled past us, staying low. He disappeared between two hanging panes, headed toward the darker corner where the stairs were. Let him go, Dale's voice roared. I am, I yelled back, as Ash wrenched his arm and threw me. I skidded across the wet floor, shoulder on fire. A chain whipped down and clipped my ear. Blood sang in my veins, hot and tinny. By the time I shoved myself to my knees, Ash was already turning, sight locked on Ryan again. Dale dropped. The commander didn't climb delicately down the stairs like a normal person. He vaulted the railing. For a second, time slowed absurdly. I saw him in pieces, boots clearing the metal, coat flaring, weapon holstered mid-fall, scent flaring like a thunderhead. He hit the floor in a roll that turned bone-cracking impact into controlled momentum, came up behind Ash, and went for his legs. Ash twisted, reacting fast. They slammed into each other, alpha scent clashing with alpha adjacent in a shockwave I felt in my teeth. The mirrors around them wailed, chains snapping under the strain. I staggered up, dizzy, and stumbled toward them. Ash recovered first, because of course he did. His elbow flashed, catching Dale along the jaw. Dale's head snapped sideways, he took it, absorbed it, and came back with a blow to Ash's solar plexus. Stop, I croaked. Stop using faces I like to hit each other, this is confusing. No one listened. They moved like they'd both been built for this. Dale, efficient and brutal, no wasted movement. Ash, fluid and dirty, using any surface, any angle, any cheap shot he could. They crashed through mirrors and bounced off support beams, teeth bared, grips striking and releasing like a storm surge. Rian huddled behind a stack of old crates now, out of the immediate firing line, eyes huge. I looked up and saw a mirror swinging wildly above the two men, its chain down to a single strained link. Some part of my brain that wasn't currently occupied with terror did a quick calculation. "Dale," I shouted. 3 steps left now. He didn't question. He shoved off Ash's chest and pivoted left. The mirror's chain snapped. The heavy glass pane dropped like a guillotine right where he'd been. Standing a heartbeat before, shattering across Ash's back instead. Ash went down hard, hissing in pain, arms thrown up to protect his head. Shards exploded outward. One cut my cheek, I hardly felt it over the adrenaline. Dale was already moving, snarling something wordless as he closed the distance. He kneed Ash in the side, flipped him halfway, and had his wrist locked behind his back before Ash's brain finished rebooting from the impact. "Don't move," Dale said. His voice wasn't loud now. It didn't have to be. Ash laughed, breathless and hoarse. "You know, if you'd been around back then, I might have stayed." "Lucky for me I wasn't," Dale said. He slammed the cuffs on. The clink of metal sounded final in a way the shattering glass hadn't. Ash let his head fall to the side. His eyes found mine through the wreckage. "Guess you chose, huh?" he said. A trickle of blood ran from his hairline, down the side of his face. Again, I swallowed. "You're not my pack," I said. My voice shook, but the words didn't. "You're just the reflection of who I was afraid I'd turn into." His smile flickered, then faded. For the first time he looked, if not sorry, then at least older. "That's the cruelest thing you've ever said to me, little L," he murmured. "Good," I said. "You earned it." Uniforms poured in then, finally catching up with the situation, weapons drawn. They swarmed Ash, taking custody. Medics moved toward Rian. Someone asked me if I was bleeding. I blinked at them until they shoved a cloth into my hand and told me to hold it to my cheek. Through it all, Dale stayed kneeling beside Ash for a beat longer than he had to, hand firm on his shoulder. Only when the cuffs were secure, only when Ash was hauled to his feet and marched away, did he let go. Then he turned to me. The storm in his scent had settled. It still crackled, but the edges were softening, rain easing to a steady fall. "Laurent," he said. "Present," I croaked. He crossed the few steps between us in 2 strides. His hands landed on my shoulders, firm but not rough, turning me a little this way and that as his gaze skimmed for damage. Up close, I could see a bruise blooming along his jaw where Ash's elbow had connected. Blood trickled from a small cut at his hairline. "You're hurt," I said automatically. "So are you," he replied. "Sit." "I'm fine." He squeezed my shoulder. "Not enough to hurt. Enough to push. Sit, Laurent." My knees decided they liked that order. I let myself drop onto an intact crate. The adrenaline crash hit hard. Suddenly my hands were shaking, my stomach swooping. Dale crouched in front of me, eyes level with mine. The noise of the warehouse, the officers talking, the medics fussing over Rian, the crackle of radios, faded to a low haze. "For the record," he said quietly, "if you ever pull a stunt like that again, I will write you up so hard HR will frame it." I barked out a laugh that was half hysteria. "You're welcome." His mouth twitched. "You sent me a false lead," he went on. "You turned your tracker off. You walked into an unknown hostile situation alone. That is not protocol." "I know," I said. "I also know if I'd waited, Rian would be on his knees in front of a mirror with no scent left." I made a call. He studied me for a long moment. "How did you know I'd find you?" he asked. I swallowed. "I didn't." His brows lifted slightly. "I hoped you would," I amended. "I left the tracker on just long enough to ping this grid. I used a training site in my text instead of an actual active location. You're not stupid. And your nose works. I gambled that you'd trust both more than my sudden desire to follow orders." He huffed out a breath. "You're right, I didn't believe you. Which presents its own concerns about our working relationship." "Wow," I said. "Your way of saying, 'I'm glad you're alive,' is really something." Something in his face softened. His hands, still on my shoulders, eased. "I am glad you're alive," he said. The words sounded like they surprised him as much as me. I am also very aware that you could have chosen differently. I stared at him. You think I chose you, I said slowly. His gaze didn't waver. You did. You could have walked away. You could have stayed with him. You could have let that boy die, and told yourself it was the system's fault. You didn't. My throat tightened. I didn't choose you, I said. Not exactly. His jaw flexed, just a little. I chose not to be who I was with him, I went on. I chose not to let him be the only voice in my head calling the shots. I chose me, for once. You just happened to be the one who showed up when I did. He let out a breath I hadn't realized he'd been holding. I can live with that, he said. We sat there for a second, both breathing, both pretending the air wasn't doing strange things. His fingers twitched on my shoulders, then stilled. Laurent, he said softly. Yeah? He hesitated, like the words hurt to push out. You're not broken. Your scent is, that's all. I blinked hard. My eyes burned. That's the nicest thing anyone said about my glandular failure, I managed. Don't get used to it, he said. I have a reputation. I barked a laugh that sounded a little like a sob. He pretended not to notice. Behind him, I saw Rian watching us from the medic side, an oxygen mask crooked in one hand, his eyes clearer than before. When our gazes met, he mouthed, "Thank you." I nodded. Once, back at the station, no one went home on time. Reports had to be filed. Evidence catalogued. Statements taken. Ash had to be processed into holding, which was a whole separate category of chaos. The building thrummed with a strange electric relief. Predators loved closure almost as much as their prey did. At some point, someone shoved a cup of coffee into my hand. I drank half of it before realizing it was decaf. For once, I didn't complain. By the time the adrenaline finally ran out of the room, it was creeping toward dawn. The bullpen had thinned to the stubborn and the nosy. Malik slid onto the corner of my desk, waving his tablet. So, he said. You and the commander went on a fun little field trip. If by fun you mean traumatic mirror maze with bonus X-Pac-Mate, sure, I said. What are you doing here? Don't you have a home? He grinned. Please. Like I'd miss this. Do you know how much the odds shifted tonight? I frowned. What odds? He turned the tablet so I could see. On the screen was a very familiar spreadsheet. At the top, will Kincaid ever snap, and if yes, who makes IT happen? Underneath, a list of names, dates, and numbers. My name was at the top of the likely culprits column with a now ambitious percentage. You made us all very rich, Malik said cheerfully. Well, some of us. I moved my bet from 3 days to unconfirmed, but probably whatever. Day he next yells your full name in the middle of the bullpen. I dropped my forehead to my keyboard. I hate all of you. No you don't, he said. You love us. We're your new terrible pack. Don't call yourselves that. I groaned into the keys. It only encourages HR. There was a shift in the air. Conversations dimmed a little, like someone had turned down the volume. I didn't have to look up to know why. Some presences you feel in your spine. Betting pools, Dale's voice said dryly. Really? Malik oozed off my desk like a guilty cat. Commander. You look lively. I was just briefed on the content of the unit's internal entertainment spreadsheet, Dale said. You've all been very busy tracking my hypothetical emotional breakdown. Morale is important, sir, Malik said solemnly. We are a family. Families, Dale said, don't usually give each other odds. You haven't met mine, Malik muttered. I lifted my head, rubbing my forehead. In their defense, Commander, you're very bettable. His gaze snapped to me. That's not a word. It is now, I said. We're adding it to the report. A muscle twitched at the corner of his mouth. The entire bullpen leaned in collectively, like a single organism waiting to see if a laugh would escape. It didn't. But his eyes warmed a fraction. Pack it up, he told Malik. Delete the spreadsheet. If I see one more line item about whether I will finally admit feelings, YN, I'll reassign everyone to night patrol in District 5. Groans of protest rose from nearby desks. District 5 has the best dumpling truck, someone called. Fine, Dale amended. District 3. An actual chorus of horror. He nodded, satisfied. Much better, he said, then turned to me. You. My office. 5 minutes. I didn't even make the spreadsheet, I protested as he walked away. I just started. He didn't dignify that with a response. Malik whistled low. He likes you. He likes not having to replace another detective, I said. There's a difference. Is there? Malik waggled his brows. Anyway, my payout says thanks. I flipped him off half-heartedly and dragged myself to my feet. Dale's office looked the same as always. Glass, angles, files aligned with military precision. The only difference was the faint smear of dried blood at his hairline, a bruised C blooming on his jaw, and the way he was leaning back in his chair like someone had taken a few bricks off his shoulders. He nodded at the door. Close it. I did. For a second, neither of us spoke. Any lingering effects? He asked finally. Headache, dizziness, intrusive thoughts of mirrors. Yes, and always, I said. But that's just my personality. I'm serious. So am I said. I'm tired, I'm sore, my ear hurts, and I'll probably have funhouse nightmares for a while. But I'm okay. He studied me, scent curling around the room, not quite as tightly leashed as usual. You disobeyed orders, he said. Multiple times? Yes, I said. You also anticipated that I wouldn't believe your message and left me enough of a trail to follow, he went on. Which is either extremely reckless or extremely trusting. I haven't decided which. Why not both? I said. His lips twitched. For the official record, he said carefully, I cannot condone your methods. Noted, I said. For the unofficial record? He held my gaze. For the unofficial record, he said quietly, I'm glad you chose to trust me. It did something stupid to my heartbeat. I swallowed. I told you. I didn't choose you. He raised a brow. I chose me, I said, forcing myself not to look away. For once. I chose not to be the Omega you and Ash and everybody else expected. But, you being there, that made it easier to stay that choice. He leaned back, considering that. The shadows under his eyes looked deeper than usual, but there was something lighter there too. Understood, he said. I'll take what I can get. I snorted. Aim high, Commander. We let the quiet sit for a moment. Then I pushed off the door and crossed to his desk, planting my hands on the back of the chair opposite him. By the way, I said, in case Malik didn't show you the fine print on that spreadsheet there's an over-under on when I'm going to start calling you Alpha. He made a face. Absolutely not. Oh, relax, I said, grinning now, too tired to hide it. I'm still not calling you that. His gaze flicked up to mine, something sparking in it I couldn't quite name. Good, he said. I'd rather earn it. Heat flushed up my neck. I fumbled for a comeback and came up empty. He seemed unjustly pleased by that. Go home, Laurent, he said, softer. Sleep, that's an order. I saluted sloppily. Yes, Commander. As I turned to go, he added, almost too low to hear. And, Laurent? Yeah? His scent shifted, warm rain over steel. For what it's worth, he said, if you ever decide you want to pack again, you don't have to choose the wrong one this time. My throat closed up. I didn't trust my voice, so I just nodded and slipped out of the glass office, back, into the noise and light and scent of the unit that might one day feel like home. Not my Alpha. My choice.